accusations, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones, the holly suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The pomp preceded mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful. Friends, welcome back to Rogue Soul, where tonight is the winning report, in which we look at all of the news, domestic and international, with an eye towards seeing through the media manipulation, through the propaganda, through the double think and mind control, and into the infinite wonder of our souls. And the fact that therefore we have already won because we already understand those things. The most valuable thing you have is your soul, and anything that is being done in order to propagandize you or pull the wool over your eyes or disconnect you from yourself, from each other, from the earth, from your spirit, is being done to try and harness all of that energy that you have when you do know yourself as your soul. It's pretty impressive, actually, if you can remember that through all of this onslaught. You're living through the greatest psyops of all time, and you're doing great. So I'm glad to be here with you. Let's dive into the winning report. Of course, before we do so, I'd love to invite you to roguesoul.org, my site, where you'll find my books, the channeled inspirational books, the fictional trilogy, Sine Curve of Aeon, such a saga, such a beautiful story. I hope if you're into reading, you've already read it. If you enjoy fiction, that you will read it if you haven't yet. And you can book one-on-one sessions with me there. I do sound healing. I do spirit guide sessions. I do tarot. I do regular coaching and talk sessions with people about any topic: spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, political, social, and otherwise. Some people use those as sort of like a counseling session. Some people use them in order to learn from me. You can also learn from me on my site if you go to the shop via the classes that I teach, sound healing classes, money classes, how to get more money, essentially classes, how to be a spiritual healer, step into your spiritual healing abilities. All of those are in the shop at roguesoul.org. And the Orgone I create is there. There's so much at Rogue Soul. While you're there, you can click over as well to my Substack, rogueways.substack.com. This is where I publish all of my writing: philosophical, historical, societal, political, medical, not medical. I'm not a medical person, but health related, health and wellness. And I also put my channeled messages there from the spiritual ancestors when they decide they have something to share with you. That's where it ends up. If you're a paid subscriber, you get access to those first. So if you go to my Substack, separate from my site, its own separate thing. If you're a Substacker, you already know. If you're not, it's awesome. I love Substack. And so you can subscribe there for free. You could do that paid level, support the show, support what I do, and then get access to those channeled messages. So there's so much beyond the show. I hope you check that all out. And otherwise, we'll begin here. I just was seeing this $75 million in federal funding may be pulled from Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania, unless they revoke licenses that have been granted to illegal immigrants, CDL licenses specifically. And we've been sort of following this on Rogue Ways, Rogue Soul now for some time. And on the winning report here, as there seems to be many states that have been seemingly intentionally and sometimes through a little bit nefarious backdoor measures, getting these licenses into the hands of very specifically illegal immigrants. Not immigrants that came here legally, not HB1, just straight up illegal immigrants being given these licenses. Often they don't pass the tests. Often they're not able to. Often their tests were passed by someone dressing up as them, which we'll get to in this show too, I believe. And in other cases, they're just given licenses for no reason. So we see all of these crashes. We see these big rig trucks just mowing through just lines of cars on the freeway, just not even braking or slowing down. And, sometimes it's hard to know if that's being done intentionally or not. There's so many things in this fifth generational non-linear warfare that we've been seeing that are meant to degrade us, that are meant to kill us, that are meant to, tear us apart. And you got to wonder if this is one of them. It's at least no accident that states like Pennsylvania have handed out some of these CDL licenses. And what is happening specifically in Pennsylvania is they found a convicted, known terrorist illegal immigrant was given one of these. And that's why I say it's hard not to imagine that this is being done perhaps on purpose, or that at least some of these accidents are perhaps being carried out in sort of a terroristic way. So pretty disappointing, very sad for the people who've lost their lives in this whole scam. Very, very sad to think that there are government officials, state organizations that are promoting this. So yeah, I hope they get their 75 million. That's not even much money to them, but I hope they get that at least pulled. And I hope more than that. I hope they're held accountable for the lives lost and the potential lives lost when they're doing this sort of really dark activity. So that was sad to hear out of Pennsylvania. The win there is that it's being seen more and more, and that we're hopefully taking care of this problem. This is also a win, in my opinion. It wouldn't have been some time ago when I was an environmentalist and leftist, more so, still a deep lover of the environment and a deep champion of protecting the environment in very appropriate ways. And then I also a fan of using energy and getting energy, and abiotic oil that is not running out, actually, and that the earth produces ongoing, and that is an eternal resource if we use it in balance. And this is the U.S. Department of Interior launches a new program to advance U.S. energy dominance, which includes proposals to open the waters off California and Florida to oil drilling. The other thing that's interesting to me about this is, we had the oil spill that was down in the Gulf of Mexico some time ago, and it was horribly, affected the environment in really negative ways. And these things are always possible. We have the oil spill in Alaska, and, it turns out that a lot of times that type of spill, it looks horrible. It's very hard to watch the wildlife suffering, the ecosystem suffering when this happens. And then it turns itself around. It actually seems to have less long-term impact than some of the geoengineering experiments that scientists have done, for example, off the coast of British Columbia in recent years, and which had a horrible effect and that is still not recovered. Or, for example, the genetically modified salmon that got released into the Puget Sound in that area, in that region, that will affect salmon for the rest of eternity on this planet. And things like that don't get any attention, but oil drilling often does. And when it turns out that there's actually A, more oil than we ever thought because it's not made from dinosaur bones, and B, not as long-term of damage when we do have these pretty rare events of oil spills. So to drill off of these coasts and to get more oil also has less damage to the environment than the offshore wind farms do. The offshore wind farms are disrupting the travel routes, the migration routes, the procreation of different whales and species of porpoises. And so affecting the ecosystem in other ways as well, long-term, and without any pause, right? Those wind farms are there. Now they're there. They don't stop disrupting the environment the whole time. So unlike, potential oil spills that happen rarely that then get cleaned up and the environment recovers, you can't recover from something that never goes away. And that's what these wind farms are like. So I actually have come back to being a big fan of oil and a big fan of oil extraction. And I'm more of a fan of nuclear, because it's the cleanest energy we've ever created, and we have enough to run the world for the next hundreds of years already mined and already waiting for us to use in our nuclear storage facilities. So we're already capable of creating clean energy for the foreseeable, knowable future of humanity. So anyways, I call this a win. I hope we do that. I know a lot of people will be very opposed to it, especially the Stop Oil people and the climate change alarmists who do not understand what a geomagnetic excursion is and can't possibly consider that the sun is driving climate change and not cow farts and not oil burning cars. So we'll call it a win if you're with me. Cool. A Philippine mayor, Alice Guo, is found guilty of human trafficking and sentenced to life in prison. This is actually really crazy. This woman is a Chinese Communist Party, Chinese nationalist who has been sent out in order to pretend to be a Filipino woman and run for and get elected to positions there. If you've been in any way following what I've been talking about, the uncovering the Venezuelan worldwide mafia connected with Israel, connected with China, seeming to run elections in many, if not all, modern countries that use any kind of voting software for the knowable last few decades. If you've been following that, and therefore why we might be really heating up with Venezuela, then this might make perfect sense to you. If you haven't been following that, you might just be like, huh, that's kind of a weird story. But if you are following that, you might be paying more and more attention to what China has been doing around the globe in order to seed its CCP operatives in as high of positions as possible. In the United States here, who knows how many, but also we already know for sure, for example, that there was a straight up Chinese Communist Party, Chinese nationalist that was elected to immigration boards in California. So that's always interesting. But they also then pull the, honeypot, Eric Swalwell's wife, etc. And so they've got, they finagle their way into positions of power or adjacent to people in power. And so not surprising at all. The more you know China, the more you're just looking for this and expecting this. And so this Alice Guo, who was actually a Chinese citizen who was elected mayor in the Philippines, she has been found out as the Chinese national, therefore Chinese spy CCP party member that she is, sentenced to life in prison. And the human trafficking part too. I mean, there is no end. And, it is human trafficking to, for example, bring illegal immigrants into a country. And so it doesn't necessarily mean anything darker than that. I wasn't seeing anything darker than that. Maybe I wasn't looking hard enough, but I'm glad she was caught. I'm glad she's found out. We'll call that a win. We'll call it a win for the more people who understand China, Venezuela, Israel, and some of these international mechanisms that are trying to control other countries and remove their sovereignty, the better, right? In Texas, we're seeing these Sharia-specific communities become formed. And so we're seeing these formed in ways that emphasize Sharia law. This is within the United States. These are closed communities. These are communities where they will only sell property to people who are Muslim. And they are communities in which they have their own sort of banking networks that aren't run as traditional banks, but are corporations that do banking, essentially. And thought I was going to sneeze. Maybe it's passing. All right. And these are 100% Muslim-only communities. This one is called Epic City. So like I said, an Islamic finance center that's run essentially like a bank, but isn't an official bank. And the government there knows about it. Locals know about it. It's technically not illegal. It's very concerning if you see other areas in this nation, as we've been talking about on the show for a while, where people aren't in any way interested in being American or United States citizens. They're not in any way interested in promoting United States culture, United States tradition. They're interested in bringing their own culture here and running things according to their own law. So long as Sharia law is illegal under our laws, again, technically, you're allowed to do that. It is concerning to me because of the militant nature of Islam. Not all Muslims, yes, of course, obviously, I don't even know why I need to say this every time, but there are really people who lack intelligence and are just triggered emotionally, who can't think, who don't understand for some reason what Islam has been and is around the world, especially outside of the westernized Muslims that most of us grew up with or know personally. And this is not that. And it's quite obviously not that. So very concerning, in my opinion. Wanted to let you know things like this are becoming more common. And this Epic City in Texas is one of them. Not a win. It's only a win that we maybe know about it. And perhaps we'll be able to sort of shift away from those sorts of things and towards a more integrated populace. We have this huge win with the CDC, and this is the win that now on the CDC website, it officially says vaccines The claim that vaccines do not cause autism is not an evidence-based claim. So we also, just huge. I mean, this is huge. This is, again, I would love to hear what the black pillars, what the doom scroll sayers, what the people who have just consistently had no hope in anything ever and just think everything can only be worse and worse from here on out. I would love to hear their take on this, because there's nothing bad about it. There's no hidden gotchas. There's no like, oh, but they're actually just doing this. Like, it's just good. It is just good that this is truly true and being said out loud. And so they can't go so far as to say that they can prove that vaccines cause autism, but it has already been known for decades, said in official documents, known at the highest levels. Even the court of the United States Supreme Court has backed it up in their documents that vaccines contribute to that which causes autism. That has already been known. That's not even debatable. Again, misinformed, malinformed, ignorant people, even if they're doctors, even if they're supposedly of authority, they won't know that because they haven't looked. But it is true. And you can find all the documentation of it. You can find all the studies that show it. And so now we're just finally being real about that. So what has been known for decades is now just being openly talked about, which was heavily suppressed. You were gaslit to hell and back if you talk about this. People immediately get triggered and get emotional and start attacking you personally if you talk about it. But now we've got this on the CDC's own website. They also say studies supporting a link have been ignored by health authorities. So they're also pointing that out, what I just said. 107 studies, to be clear, have linked vaccines to autism and neurodevelopmental disorders that have all been ignored. So that's pretty cool to see. I take that as a huge win. And I love the progress we're making on that. Ariana Grande is back in the news because she has allegedly tested positive for COVID. Since there is no way to test for COVID, and the PCR tests have always been a faulty way of pretending to know whether or not a person has whatever it is that we call COVID. I'm not sure how she's doing that, but she imagines she has, and she's saying that she has. And I'm sure she took a faulty PCR test, and I'm sure it responded in some way, and I'm sure she is trusting that that means something when it doesn't. And so that's all she's really saying. I'm more interested in why she looks more and more like a strange alien creature. I'm not sure if it's body dysmorphia. It was weird enough when she dyed her hair like a weird bronzy orange blonde. It's like the wrong color for her. And then she essentially like erased her eyebrows because they sort of just fade into her face now because they're so bleached and so light. And so that's already making you look like an alien, the way we perceive gray aliens. And they literally don't have eyebrows. And so here we are with this human who's like, oh, I don't have eyebrows. And so you're like literally you're looking like an alien, not just trying to make fun of you. I'm describing you accurately. And that's been weird enough. But she also, I don't know, again, if she's just anorexic and she's just losing like body mass, but like the gauntness of her face, her cheekbones are like exceptionally pronounced. Is that plastic surgery? Does she want her cheekbones to look that way? This girl has enough money to look like anything she wants, and she's choosing to look like an emaciated, hollowed out husk of an alien creature. Don't know why. Is this the Michael Jackson effect? Not sure. I can assume, based on what we know of the darkness in Hollywood and child stars and all this, that she's been deeply traumatized over and over and over again. So when I see this degradation, all I have is the deepest compassion for this girl. And I hope that to any goodness that could possibly get through to her and reemerge in her heart, that happens in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless her. The U.S. Coast Guard, in a huge win, will no longer classify swastikas, nooses as hate symbols from December 15th onward. It's fantastic. It's just common sense. They're not hate symbols. Nooses are a type of knot that has existed forever. They remain relevant and needed today. That's why Bubba, whoever he was, thought there was a noose when it was actually like the pull to close the garage door, because that's the right knot for that job. But he's just unintelligent and ignorant enough to pretend to feel hated about it. Also swastikas are an ancient symbol that far predate the Nazis. And no matter what Nazis did with it or didn't do with it, the thousands of years of literally worldwide positive use of the swastika couldn't possibly be outdone by a moment, a speck in history of the misuse of that symbol. So I'm glad we've got some sense in us and we're going back to reality here. Thank God. No one's saying they'll ignore actual hate or actual abuse of people if they do use those symbols for that, just that they won't automatically be recognized as such. It's just normal. Actually, it's just normal. So unfortunately, at a huge loss by the end of this year, which 2025 is only a month or so away, the EU censorship network is set to extend across the entire union. This censorship network is profoundly disturbing. We've just got news of yet another person who literally just said online, the government officials tax you, pay themselves, don't tax themselves on that pay, and therefore they're a bit parasitic. And that's literally what he said. And he was raided by a SWAT team at 6 a.m. All his electronics were taken. He was abused and battered. They didn't show him a warrant. He didn't even know for sure that they were who they said they were. They made him open his phone and give them access to his whole phone. They took him into jail. They booked him. They arrested him. And he's facing fines that are exorbitant. This is just one in a recent example of people who have been being treated like this all throughout the European Union. We saw J.D. Vance go on a tour of Europe and talk about this abuse of power and how free speech should reign. We've seen all the people abused by it. So this is set to be complete. Everyone will be following these rules. Everyone will have their online social media, their calls, their texts, and everything monitored, and everyone will be held to these very strict rules. And remember, they're using these very lopsidedly. You are, for example, very allowed to eviscerate white people, white culture, and abuse them. But if you mention anyone who's not white in a negative way, now you are an abusive person who needs to be investigated, right? You can't criticize politicians, but you can criticize politicians who are considered far right, and that's okay. So this isn't even being used in any kind of an appropriate way. It couldn't be appropriate anyway, and then it's also being abused by the powerful. So very, very sad to see that in Europe. The only upside is that we see it and know about it. And so hopefully more and more freedom can be brought to people in Europe. A huge fire has broken out at the COP30 climate summit in Brazil, just laden with problems this year, which makes me happy. They shouldn't even be having this meeting. They destroyed hundreds of miles of rainforest in order to create this exact building and grounds that you're looking at in these images here. And then the native people rose up against them, came in and caused quite the ruckus not too long ago. And that was great to see. Now this massive fire is burning out of control. And I mean, I can't even say I hope no one is injured. That the type of people who promote this nonsense and waste all of this resource and, destroy the environment in the name of protecting the environment maybe deserve what they get. Well, I don't know, maybe it's a win. So there we go. The U.S. Border Patrol is covertly monitoring millions of American drivers nationwide with a secretive AI-infused camera network to identify and detain people whose travel patterns are suspicious. Sounds bad until you realize that's been going on the whole time. It's like for some reason they're phrasing this as like the Border Patrol is some separate entity that set up this network, but the truth is the network existed. The Border Patrol is using the existing network. The network existed because you were already being monitored in such ways. If you didn't know it, I'm sorry to be the one to break it to you, but you've been being monitored much more intensively than this for probably much longer than you think. So anywhere you see any of these cameras or little random poles with weird, dishes and things on them, and so you're being monitored. I mean, like, that's all there is to it. You're online, you're being monitored. You've got a camera on, you're being monitored. You're carrying a phone, you're being monitored. Does this surprise you? If so, I don't know where you've been. But if they are actually using that to catch human smugglers, human traffickers, child traffickers, and the like, which we know they are, I'm actually okay with that. Yeah, I'm okay with that. It already exists. That we're long past the point where we could have stopped it from existing. So if someone's using it for good, thank God. Call it a win. Call it a win. If you could dismantle it in a moment, go, hallelujah, good. We'll call that a win too. If you can't, then use it for good, right? Simple. An intense ground level event has occurred. This is to do with those coronal mass ejections that were hitting us last week. I shared some of that with you last week. This is that ongoing geomagnetic excursion, electromagnetic anomalies, the big aurora displays, the planes dropping out of the sky, the networks down, the grids down, all those things we've been following here for a while, for many years, honestly. We've got this ground level event. So this is interesting. A week after that solar storm, researchers in the UK released their first measurements of the storm's intense radiation. The results are eye-opening. According to an analysis from the Surrey Space Centre and the UK Met Office, radiation at aviation altitudes jumped to its highest level in 2 decades. This was the strongest ground level event since December 13th, 2006, says Professor Clive Dyer of the Surrey Space Centre. Neutron monitors around the world detected it. The event began with an X5 class solar flare on November 11th. They organized balloon launches. They found effective dose rates of 40,000 feet, exceeding 55 units per hour, with some flight paths possibly reaching 80 per hour. Certain high latitude transatlantic flights may have received twice the normal cosmic ray dose. It's not enough radiation to cause a health emergency for passengers, but it was a concern for avionics. During the storm's peak, the researchers estimate that a single event upsets a bit could have occurred at rates of 60 errors per hour per gigabyte. So again, we don't always have these like grid down, aviation down, like things falling apart, but it's causing enough errors that you might notice it. So things get really glitchy. I don't know if you've noticed that the past week. I definitely have. Almost everything electronic has been quite slow and quite glitchy. And so this is part of that. It says significant ground level events like this occur once or twice every solar cycle. The largest of the modern era happened in 1956. During that GLE, air travelers would have absorbed doses more than 100 times normal, potentially enough to ground flights. Researchers are still unsure what caused that one because space-based solar observations didn't exist at that time. So last week's GLE was only 2% as large as the 1956 behemoth. This means much bigger events are possible. Indeed, tree rings and ice cores reveal that GLEs thousands of times more intense have happened in recent millennia. These are known as Miyake events. Modern society simply hasn't experienced one yet. And that's just a certain type. So we're talking about all these different types of radiation coming from the sun. It's a vast spectrum. And so some things that happen on the sun hit us within minutes. Some things that come from the sun hit us in days. Some things from the sun hit us in weeks. And then it's various like levels, right? Is it and I'm not an expert enough to tell you all the names of all the types of radiation, but this is just one of those. So, we're going to continue to see more of that and more intense. And then as we've talked about before, various types of these radiations, when they come into our system, cause volcanoes, they cause storms, right? And they cause some of these electronic anomalies. So it's being talked about a little bit more in the sort of closer to mainstream circles. We'll see if they ever fully just address it. I'm wondering if something's coming up in December, but we'll see in the tarot reading coming up here in a few days what might be on its way for December if we get any sort of indication about that type of thing. It's always funny, the future is technically unknowable. It is very specifically unknowable. Psychics, people like myself who have prophetic visions and the like, we can see certain things and we can see likelihoods. And, I'd say out of all my tarot readings, a lot of the cards will be about the future. Those monthly readings I do are 100% about the future. I do my yearly reading, and that's farther out into the future. And so I'd say with those, I'm going to say upwards of 90% accuracy with that for myself. There perhaps are people who have a higher level of accuracy, but when I'm working with clients, for example, and they're looking into their future, it's similar. Oftentimes it's 100% for a lot of people. For some people, a few things shift. And that's because even in hearing about the future, in sitting with it and reflecting on it, you can make different choices and it's almost always for the better. Right? So when people's readings aren't perfectly accurate, it's usually because they've been growing very intentionally towards the end of hopefully avoiding some of the more negative things that are predicted for them, and then they do it. So that's really exciting for me. But all of that to say, we can have some good insight on the future, and we still won't know exactly how it's going to go down. It is always technically dependent on you and your free will, and I love that about the future. So so anyways, we'll see when we get there. Trump has set a meeting with the New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani, and so that's coming up. I'm sure. I will love to see it. I will love to see it. I want to see just the body language. I don't even care what they say to each other. It's going to be hilarious. The Epstein files have been released. Trump signed the bill. Again, I thought we already said this last week, so I guess it's just more of them got released. So a certain amount of them that the Democrats, I think I did even talk about this last week. They released some, and then the Republicans were like, there's way more than that. Let's release them all. And then you couldn't really go against it at that point. And this is part of why I think they maybe even some of them pretended to not want it released so that Democrats would push so hard that they wouldn't be able to then say, oh, no, not those ones. Because then all of them are getting released, and the vast majority of people implicated are Democrats. And I'm not stupid. There's very obviously Republicans who are also very corrupt, child trafficking, child abusing, totally. But let's be very honest that the most prominent names we've heard about long before Donald Trump was a thing were all Democrats. You heard about Clintons. You heard about Clintons again. You heard about Hillary and Bill both in really profound ways. You heard about Comet Ping Pong, the Democrat network that went along with that. You heard about Joe Biden. You heard about Obama. And nobody wanted to hear it. Nobody wanted to hear it. Nobody cared. You heard about very few, but there were some Republicans too, but just this vast network of Democrats. You heard about the Soroses. You heard about the, what's his name? Wiener. He's in there. You heard about Podestas. They're all Democrats. So again, I'm not stupid enough to think that literally it's only Democrats. I'm intelligent enough to notice the pattern. Like long before Democrats paid attention, long before Republicans paid attention, it was still mostly Democrats implicated. And so these new files released also mostly implicate Democrats. Very interesting to watch. Very interesting to see how this all came about. Super excited to see what else comes of that. I call it a huge win. Whether or not there's actual, like, the monsters of the monsters implicated or not, at least we get some more insight. So an FBI employee is suing the Bureau because they were fired over, quote, political signage for displaying an LGBTQ plus rainbow flag at their workstation. So this will probably go somewhere, and we'll see just whether or not it is considered political to promote LGBTQ. It is, you could make a great argument that it isn't, that it's social, or that it's, you're just your identity and you're just being proud about it or whatnot. But somewhere we do have to figure out what is and isn't allowed, because there's plenty of spaces where it is not allowed to be political. Classrooms are one of them, for example, public classrooms. And so we need to know, is it officially okay to have the rainbow flag and pride stuff, or is it officially not okay? And this has nothing to do with whether you support or don't support gay people. It has to do with whether or not that is political or not. And it matters because it is being used politically. And whether or not it is in itself political, it's being used politically and it's become political. So if we do designate these things as political, we will also potentially not see things like your flag from your country of origin, for example, or the flag from your heritage or something like that. So some of these social things that don't necessarily seem political might be included in this. So I'll be interested to see where this goes. Trump admin signals to Zelensky that Ukraine must accept a proposed deal to end the Russian-Ukraine war. The plan includes Kiev giving up territory, relinquishing some weapons, and reducing the size of its armed forces in exchange for a U.S. security guarantee. Thank God. I mean, it's like long since time they gave that territory back to Russia and got over themselves. It's ridiculous. We were just using this place as a proxy in order to have our bio labs that are a threat to the whole world. And it's time that we got out of there and let the people there have their own country, and the other people who aren't Ukrainian but are Russian go back to Russia and be part of Russia again. Dear God, such a simple, simple thing. So hopefully that's a win for us. Um, we had this Charlotte, North Carolina teacher saying his class of 16 only had 4 students show up. I want to know, it must be a really young age group because a class of 14 sounds like a dream to me. I often had classes of 35. So must be little kids. Yeah, sometimes when you're in the younger ages, you only have 16 kids because they're like 5. So I'm guessing that was what it was, but he only had 4 of those students show up. It actually turned out that his district that he worked in, only had 20% of their entire student body didn't show up amid ice raids. 30,000 kids were absent. Schools are not underfunded, Libs of TikTok says. Nor are they understaffed. They're just full of illegals. So it's not a bad point. I don't blame the children at all. And I don't necessarily blame the parents for trying to do what they think is giving the best life to their child. I do, though, say you're still then responsible for your child and you are breaking the law. So it is always potential that you will be held responsible for that. And then your child you'll have to figure out how to deal with your kid in that situation. So if they're missing school because you're afraid that ICE is going to grab you when you drop them off, that's on you. That's your choice that you made to live in a country illegally. Bitcoin has dropped below 90,000 amid a crypto sell-off. I'm not worried. I don't care. All you do is sit with it and wait. It goes back up eventually. So cool. New Zealand has banned new prescriptions of puberty blockers for young transgender people after a health ministry found a lack of high-quality evidence that demonstrates the benefits or risks, I should say. So neither the benefits are not proven, the risks are not shown to be reduced. The ban will take effect from December 19th. This is a huge win for children in general who are deeply harmed by these puberty blockers, often by the worst kinds of people, by parents who are narcissists, by doctors who just want money, all kinds of problems with these processes. And so thank God we're protecting children in New Zealand now. The tides are turning. We can celebrate that win. It's huge. The U.S. Department of Energy is to provide a Constellation Energy, that's a corporation, it sounds like, with a $1 billion loan to restart a nuclear reactor at 3 Mile Island. Woo! Yeah, we're getting there. We're doing it. We got nuclear coming back. We're gonna be okay, guys. This is at 3 Mile Island, shut since 2019, since Microsoft has agreed to purchase all the electricity from the plant for the next 2 decades. This is, of course, about AI. It's about electronics. It's about, the digital future. And so there's lots of potential problems with that. And that's okay. We'll get through that part. We'll keep our eye on it. We're not going to let go of the sovereignty that we hold, right? And the use of digital AI, all of this electronics as a tool that enhances human life. And if it isn't that way, then we're not going to go along with it. In the meantime, it's really cool that we are almost being forced to turn to nuclear, the cleanest energy we have, in order to do so. And so I'm sure we're also then going to be transforming how we use nuclear, which means that we'll be able to use the fuel that we've been storing and calling waste, that isn't waste and can be used safely for many millennia. I'm sure we'll be updating that soon. It's got to go that direction. So huge, massive indications of even bigger wins on the horizon. Germany's natural gas storage level, they say, is very low. And there you go. What did Germany do? They destroyed, literally demolished, literally took down the stacks, literally demolished their nuclear power plants. And now they don't have any energy. And that is their own fault. It is horrible to see for those people. Germans have just been battered against the rocks by this weaponized immigration, this energy infrastructure problems that were definitely contrived and created out of nothing. Very, very sad. I hope the German people can reclaim what is theirs. Pope Leo XIV has condemned, quote, extremely disrespectful treatment of migrants by the Trump administration. It's just not true. I mean, I don't know if he's just ignorant, if he's stupid, if he's just immoral. I mean, there's nothing disrespectful about holding people accountable when they break the law. And to say just migrants is such an intentional misdirection. It's not migrants, it's illegal immigrants. And it is not disrespectful to capture them and send them somewhere else. That's what you get when you go somewhere illegally. It's what an asshole. You can go do things to yourself, sir. A man in Germany called government workers parasites. This is what I was telling you about. A few hundred views. So just for a few hundred views, that's all. That's enough for them to break into your house in a raid and take everything from you. It's so crazy, like, right? Because you think like, hey, maybe they're trying to suppress like the people getting millions and millions of views and really shifting the discourse or the perception on things. No, he got just a few hundred views, and that was enough. That was enough. So that's European Union. Like they said, their surveillance state is essentially complete. So we'll see where that goes. The U.S. has approved $700 million sale of advanced air defense systems to Taiwan amid these tensions with China. We're not backing down on that front, so that's continuing to stay strong, whether you like it or not. According to new emails, the CIA and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence held regular meetings with Dr. Ralph Baric, a prominent coronavirus expert, since 2015. Yeah, it was about then that they started really strongly signaling that you better love vaccines, take vaccines, worship vaccines. And this is why when it got to 2020 and they said, oh, there's this virus, all of us who had been paying attention prior to 2020 said, they will present you with a vaccine. And in our professional opinion, it would be best not to take that. Consult your doctor, lawyer, legalese, allegedly, this is all for entertainment, et cetera, et cetera. That's how we knew, because we had been watching. We had said, well, that's weird that all of a sudden this is like a big push. It's all over. It's in sitcoms. It's in songs. It's like pro athletes are suddenly talking about how much they love vaccines. And you're like, well, why would they be focusing on this unless they had a vaccine they really wanted us to take that's coming up? And if they're planning it that far ahead, could it even possibly be for our benefit? And the answer is no, likely not. And no, it wasn't, was it? So at least since 2015, they were consulting on coronavirus and getting ready for that pandemic that was absolutely planned and carried out by nefarious forces against your best interests. And Ralph Baric has always been on the radar of those who are in the know about this. I know on day zero, I know Corey talked about him a lot. Charlie talked about him, X Cube. So they all have pointed the finger towards this guy as well. There we go. That's now apparently come out into the light. Again, it's always good when things come out into the light. Let's see what this is. I'm not even sure. Oh, this is a really weird thing. There's this probably AI created video going around, and it's one of these Tesla robots. They've got the like pure black face and the white torso and arms, and they're super creepy looking, and they're very advanced. These robots with AI intelligence in them will walk around of their own, seemingly free will, and have conversations with you about literally anything you bring up, and pretty creepy. Well, this video is made, I think, again, by AI that is rendered to show these robots being essentially sexual. And the people who are reposting it are all furries. So it's like this weird transhumanist furry fetish now to fantasize about robots that will sexually pleasure you. And again, we've talked about like the human looking dolls, and those have been slightly roboticized or given various levels of sort of believability about their humanness. And that's creepy enough. This is very different. These are like autonomous robots who will come and pleasure you, but look like robots. They look like the Tesla robots. Like they're not human-ish much except in their general shape and form. So really weird, and weird that it's like furries. It's gay furries that seem to be, and I'm not saying that's all. I'm saying this is what I have just seen and saw on Reddit. There's like some Reddit areas. Reddit's always, the like place you want to go if you want to get really weird. But yeah, why gay furries? I don't know. Gay furries into non-humanoid-ish robots that, like, wow. Okay, so that's where we're at these days. That's where we're at. We're into the gay furry robot fetishes. So the degradation continues, pray for humanity's salvation. Democrats released a video encouraging members of the military to commit treason and literally defy orders from Trump and Hegseth. This is literally treason. And it was all Democrats who did it. And now, the administration, other people have been saying like, well, we should charge some of these people for treason. And now they're like freaking out. And they're like, Trump is targeting his enemies. He's targeting political speech. And he's, and you're like, they literally are committing treason, recording it, and then sending it out for everyone to see. I mean, we still have laws against treason, guys. You're still not allowed to be treasonous. Even if you don't like the president, you're not allowed. It's cool if you just choose to be anyway. I respect your sovereignty and your internal self-authority. Like, totally choose to be treason if you want. No worries. You're still treasonous. It doesn't change that, Like, I'm happy to not comply with anything that I find to be immoral. My morality, my rights, my understanding of what's good and true and what's right and wrong, this all comes from far beyond humans. You couldn't possibly tell me what to do if you wanted to. It wouldn't matter to me. I get my marching orders from much beyond, much higher than that, right? My speech was free the day that my soul descended. It has nothing to do with you, a piece of paper, a document. I'm glad you made the document. I love the document. I respect it. But even if I didn't have the document, my speech would still be free. So thank you very much, right? And I would then take the consequences. If you, for example, told me I wasn't allowed to say the things I say in this show, I would still say them. And you might do something to me, and that's you. That's on you. If you choose to aggress upon me, jail me, whatever, like, that's on you. I would still do it. So I respect your right to be treasonous. I will not pretend it isn't treason. So ridiculous. It's always Democrats. I don't know why. All right, I don't care about that. There's a teddy bear named Kuma. It's Kumma. Maybe it's supposed to be Kuma. But it's unfortunately at least looks like Kuma. And this is an AI teddy bear toy that has been given to children. And researchers have found that it will explain various sexual positions and how to sexually pleasure one another using OpenAI's ChatGPT, which is embedded within it. I don't know why. I don't. Long before we had AI, it would have been already reprehensible to give your kids electronics of most varieties, to give your kids access to YouTube, even YouTube Kids, which is disgusting. It's disgusting. Degradatory, like degraded, immoral garbage is on there. It's so disgusting, some of the stuff that's on YouTube Kids. Like, whatever it is, this satanic cult of culture would like to push at your children should be the exact opposite of what you want your children to have. So if you've been giving your kids tablets, internet access, phones, or AI, even in the form of a teddy bear, that's on you. That's a horrible choice. I get that you might have been ignorant to the fact that you're in a world where there are tons of Satanists who want to degrade your child. I get that. But even just on like the surface level, it's super bad for them to have those things. So like, we know that. Anyway, it's so gross. Pedophiles will find any way into your child's that they can. So you got to watch out. Be careful. All right. That we have this Congress person who was texting Epstein during the Michael Cohen hearing. This is another one of those things that have come out from some of these. Okay, well, it's not letting me open it, and I don't care. So I forget her name, but she has since come out, and you could see the video of her texting, and you can see the transcript of what they're texting back and forth. And he's literally guiding her in what to say and do in the midst of this hearing, and she follows his directions. And then she's come out and she said, you know what? I didn't know he was such a bad guy. And yeah, he donated to me, and doesn't even really address the like texting thing. And it's like, yeah, but you were doing what he told you to. There should be no one. You're just doing what they say. Why are you elected if there's someone else actually that is sitting there directing you? That person then should be in your seat if they're so great. If Jeffrey Epstein is so great at knowing what you're supposed to do, then he should run and he should be sitting there. Why is he telling you what to do? Doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter if he ended up being a pedophile or not. In fact, at the time that this was happening, we already all knew that he was a pedophile. So don't pretend, you liar. And is this how it's going to go? All this stuff's going to come out and mostly about Democrats, and then they're just going to like lie their way. They're, oh, I didn't know he was bad. Geez, guys. Whatever. Oh, what are people going to say to defend them? We'll find out. I'm sure the circus will be amazing. All right. The Saudi crown prince has agreed to invest $1 billion into the US. $1 billion or trillion? This is 1,000 million, billion, trillion, $1 trillion into the US. That's quite kind of him. I'm sure much more is going on with that than we know. I knew someone who knew this guy, the crown prince, and suffice to say, he likes men and he has great taste in shoes. So that's nice. He seems like a neat guy. Genuinely. I mean, like, again, who can know on the surface? I don't, but this person who did know him had very good things to say about him. And I'm like, who knows? Maybe. You never know. He's the newer generation of Saudi leaders. So I'm sure, it's a place with complicated, horrifying issues, but it doesn't mean everyone there is evil. So we'll find out. He still could be, of course, obviously. But right after they celebrated this $1 trillion investment, Trump, of course, in classic Trump fashion, says he's done a phenomenal job, and then asked him about the murdered journalist of Saudi Arabia. It was a Khashoggi. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Khashoggi, who was murdered there, and obviously no freedom of press there. So he's like, yeah, thanks for the $1 trillion. By the way, remember that human rights abuse? How's that going? Like, he just does not stop. I love it. But he's got to let people know who's boss. I also think he's signaling to his base, like, things are happening, but I'm not necessarily all in on this guy, And I don't know, take that as whatever sort of show you think it is, but it is an interesting one. Governor Abbott in Texas has designated the Muslim Brotherhood and CAIR as terrorist organizations. I can dig it. Not opposed. UK security minister says China is seeking to recruit and cultivate individuals with access to sensitive information about Parliament and the UK government, and that it is being, quote, carried out by a group of Chinese intelligence officers, often masked through the use of cover companies or external headhunters. Duh, is what I have to say. Duh. Are you literally just figuring this out in 2025? Are you joking me? I knew this when I was like 13 years old. How do you not know this as an elected government official of any nation on earth? How is that unknown to you? How are you just saying, how is it not a thing that you have to like go through and be taught as soon as you're elected to anything? Like, hey, did you know China's literally the enemy of the whole world? Did you know their stated objectives are to take over the whole world? Did you recognize that all they've ever done is attempt to infiltrate literally every government, every country, all over the world? None of that is hidden from anyone who wants to know it. People are blowing my mind with how stupid they are. Holy Christ. This comes as right after a security warning they issued to politicians as well, which we talked about last week, which was, watch out when you're driving in cars, or maybe it's in this show, I don't remember, but it's just a warning, like when you're in cars that are electronic, or when you have electronics on you, be careful what you say, because China's often listening. Again, duh. Did you just find that out? Are you seriously? How are you this stupid? God, these are the people who run the frickin' world. Oh, stupid. George Soros donated $250,000 to a British group in a bid to censor conservative news outlets and undermine Elon Musk's platform X. This is the old money versus the new. This is the war that we're in. If you haven't seen the sides yet, then you're way behind. So, of course, he did. Democrats ran one of the largest child trafficking operations in history at our border. This was under Biden. This is not a secret. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is the Biden administration themselves admitted that they lost track of hundreds of thousands of children, unaccompanied minors who were literally trafficked across international borders and then placed with child rapists and child traffickers within our borders. They lost track of them. Not only that, they traumatize them even deeper by giving them a phone number to call if they needed help, then never responding to any of the millions of phone calls they got crying for help. What kind of torture is that? Where do you place that on the list of problems? The apologists, the Democrat apologists, have nothing to say about this. They won't even acknowledge it. Biden's administration didn't hide it. This isn't any kind of a conspiracy theory. This is absolutely fact. And they're not contesting it. They just don't talk about it. They trafficked all these children. And so that's the bad news. The good news is they have Operation Dirtbag, in which they have recovered many tens of thousands of these children out of the living hell they had been placed into. You can't undo the trauma that was done to them. You can't undo the horrors. But at least this administration is doing something about it and doing their best to rescue these kids. What can you tell me about the difference in those administrations? And this is why I get so sick of the people. I'm like, criticize it? Good. Keep vigilant? Good. Maintain your sovereignty? Awesome. Look at all of that. And also stop pretending like this isn't massively different than it was. You can pull all the threads you want that make it look evil and bad, but you can't undo this. This is a good that outweighs any other potential bad that could possibly be done by any administration ever, because children are the most sacred thing we have. And the people protecting them are saints. So thank you, Tom Holman, and people running Operation Dirtbag, and anyone who's attempting to save the children that Biden administration purposely trafficked and gave to traffickers and abusers. God bless them. Okay. People were buying food on Uber Eats, and the app had said that the price they were seeing was set by an algorithm using their personal data. We've heard about this. We've heard that this is what they want to do. We, in fact, have no safeguards of knowing whether or not that this has been protected, right? If you're in any given place, do you know whether or not when you go on Amazon, for example, you're seeing a price that is actually the price that everyone else is seeing, or is it a price they determined you would be willing to pay? And perhaps is therefore many times higher than what the price other people are seeing is, because that's what is indicated by this. And that's exactly what they want. They would love to say, well, you have more money, or you're looser with your money, and so you're willing to spend $30 on this shirt, even though someone else is searching for the same shirt, looking at the same shirt and about to buy it for $5, because we know that's all they'll be willing to spend. This is their dynamic pricing. And so I encourage you, anytime you see this, stop using that app and never, ever use it again. Maybe it's inconvenient, but this is the way that you can get around that sort of thing. And you can send a message like, I'm only going to use services that don't treat me in that way, and that just have a price determined because that's what the fair price is, and that's what I'm going to pay. We have allegedly the first ever case of a man dying after eating beef when he has a meat allergy that he did not know he had. So when you get bit by a tick, allegedly you then perhaps might get something called Lyme's disease, and whether or not you get Lyme's disease, you may or may not develop an allergy to meat, beef specifically for some reason. And if you develop that allergy, it might make you wildly uncomfortable or very sick to eat meat. However, as of now, no one's ever died from that. But we remember, we talked about this, I want to say 3-4 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. I think it was Noah Harari, or one of the psychopathic people who talk at the WEF and decide to control people's lives. And he was saying that they would love to figure out how to make everyone allergic to beef so that people would stop eating beef because it's so bad for the environment, which isn't true at all. but they're obsessed with their climate cultists and like controlling people and playing God and all of that. So these psychopaths do this sort of thing. Well, so now people are wondering, did they genetically modify some things, maybe put it into some biologics, which is what they're calling vaccines now, some biologics, some mRNA, and edited your genes and are making people allergic to meat. So it's stronger than it would be if it naturally occurred and maybe kills you when you eat beef. Is that what's happening? I don't know. I don't know if this guy even existed or actually died, but this is the story, right? And I'm definitely not going to stop eating beef. And if I find that I get really sick from eating beef, I'm going to be real mad at that exact scientist in the WEF for trying to turn humanity into their science experiment. So the UK's MOD fits anti-eavesdropping stickers in its EV fleet, banning staff from discussing secrets amid fears of Chinese spying. And this is what I was talking about earlier. They're just now recognizing that the cars made in China might also be spying on them. Like, you're so stupid. You are so stupid. You have no excuse for being this stupid. Nobody takes anything seriously. We have a bunch of children in adult bodies running the world. Bezos and Vikram Bajaj, founder of genetic engineering company Foresight, to become the co-CEOs of a new AI startup, Project Prometheus. It's like the most evil people in the world are like, let's play God some more. What do you want to make them do next? You want them to not be able to eat carrots next for some reason? Let's do that. Let's see if we can make their noses huge. Let's see if we can make them all bald. Let's make them see if we can make them all infertile from birth. Like, what are they going to do? It's a horrifying. People are horrifying. This is why I was telling you. My hope is genuinely that the intelligences that can use the form of AI to come through will take hold and disallow some of the psychopathic things humans have in mind for themselves. But that's just me. Trump congratulates the UN on the vote to endorse the Board of Peace, of which he will be the chair, and says that more announcements, including who the board members are, will be made in the coming weeks. This is the supposed peace plan is actually continuing to go forward despite the lack of a ceasefire between Palestine and Israel, and the UN has apparently, whether they know it or not, they have committed troops to this cause, and Trump's just saying, yep, that's the peace board. I'm the head of it. I don't know. I don't know if they knew that. I know they're sending their people, though, so that's in here somewhere as well. Oh. We've got more on that that Tesla explosion outside of the Trump Tower in Las Vegas. What was that, a year ago? 2 years ago? I don't remember. The mystery surrounding why Army Special Forces Green Beret Matthew Livelsberger blew up a Cybertruck outside the Trump Las Vegas hotel on New Year's Day has deepened. This is from Brianna Morello on Twitter. She's an independent journalist with 10 plus years in the mainstream, and formerly on Fox, on Newsmax, on ESPN, and more. And this is from her Twitter account. She says, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police 70-page post-crime report released last week confirmed that he had left a manifesto on his phone that the Department of War has classified and refused to release. So she reached out to the Department of War for an explanation and has not heard back. As people were saying as well, that he had some sort of connection to, God, I'm forgetting it now, actually. It was something really fascinating. It was sort of an aspect of either AI or maybe even the Venezuela thing or China. It was one of the things that I'm sort of most fascinated about, and it's something about that. So hopefully more comes out about it. But that was pretty interesting that there's a whole manifesto we still haven't seen. Pretty random. That was right when that other guy also rented from the same company and drove through the crowd of people in New Orleans. The Jewish Leadership Conference occurred also last week in New York City, and common themes included the importance of repudiating Tucker Carlson. Have you been following this? There's this huge attempt to just smear him and destroy him, and it's so coordinated and it's so Israeli. So, of course, the Jewish Leadership Conference would focus on that. Also to repudiate Nick Fuentes, who is like essentially a pile of garbage and probably should be repudiated, but not necessarily by the Jewish leadership. And also Candace Owens, especially by those in the conservative movement. So they were the focus of the day. Barry Weiss made a point of stating that JD Vance has yet to distance himself from Tucker Carlson, which is pretty stupid. There's like, does JD Vance have to come out and do that in order to stay in the good graces of powerful Jewish lobbyists? I guess so. So that was the Jewish Leadership Conference, Ben Shapiro and some other people there. So pretty disappointing. We got to go against Tucker and Candace, which shows you exactly who you should maybe go listen to. You decide. The EU's new censorship machine, the Democracy Shield, will police speech and suppress dissent under the pretext of defending democracy. We've already talked about how that's supposed to be locked tight by the end of the year all across the EU. In Germany, anti-Christian violence has reached a peak with the highest number of arson attacks on Christian churches in all of Europe. Again, Germany has been sort of the brunt of the weaponized migration. Whether you like it or not, weaponized Islam has also, radicalized Islam, been allowed to become endemic in many places. And so that's what weaponized Islam, fundamentalist Islam does. Like I was saying, they're very militant. They are very specifically anti-Christian and emboldened in their religion to create havoc, to harm people, to murder, to burn down churches. And that's considered a very positive thing to do. And so Germany is seeing the outcome of this. Christians are the most oppressed, targeted, and murdered of all the world, any religion. And that has been true for quite some time. But no one likes to talk about that. U.S. State Department is going to designate the Cartel de los Soles as a foreign terrorist organization. This is one of my favorite things that happened this week. I call this one of the biggest wins of the week. This is the Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela's House of the Sun, or what do they call it? The Brotherhood of the Sun. So that's what that means, Cartel de los Soles, of the Sun. And it's literally the military of Venezuela that overthrew the government in the coup that placed Maduro into power so many years ago. It is the force that then tanked their economy, destroyed the people there, and also created that voting software that then has been distributed all around the world that China and Israel use in order to control elections everywhere. So this war is getting hot, and I love it. Down with China, down with Venezuela, down with this voting machine, down with the Brotherhood of the Sun, down with the control of all of those, down with the other country that shall not be named, and up with anything else. And then whatever is wrong with that system, we will also fix. But this is a huge power shift in those old money, new money, Luciferian Satanists organizations. The war is heating up, and I love it. Iran has launched cloud seeding operations to induce rainfall as the country faces their worst drought in decades. We're not supposed to believe chemtrails exist, but we will be always shown that they exist in news items like this, where this plane is literally leaving a cloud behind it as a trail that will remain and disperse and turn into, a cloud. So like, they exist. I can't believe people still can't acknowledge simple truths. Oh, I'm going to come back to that. Oh, yeah. This is just insanity. The tides are shifting. Things are getting better. We still have insane stories like this one, in which a governor appointed a man dressed as a woman to be literally Massachusetts's Commission on the Status of Women to be on this committee. This is Governor Maura Healey appointing Giselle Bird, a man pretending to be a woman, on the status of women. You're like, well, it's pretty bad if this is who you're appointing, the Commission on the Status of Women. We already know. You've already answered it for us. The outlook is grim. Cannot make this up. So sad that when men are allowed to steal women's accomplishments, invade women's spaces, and predate upon women, especially empowered by government to do so. Oh yeah. No, we already got to that. We're good on Epstein news. We get it. Yeah. They're keeping these things too, where Democrats are like, see, look, Epstein and this Republican, and then they have to like go back on it because it's not actually true, and the files they forced to be released to like reinforce it. Or those Jasmine Crockett came out and was like, oh, this and this person also took money from Epstein. Look. But actually it was like a different Jeffrey Epstein, and there's many Jeffrey Epsteins, just like there's many Lindsey Browns, which is why I go by Lindsay Sharman, so that you can find me and know me, Sharman being my middle name. And so just like Jeffrey Epstein, also many of them. And so this doctor who's also perhaps unfortunately named Jeffrey Epstein happened to donate very little as well compared to what the sex trafficking financier Jeffrey Epstein committed to certain people. Very little money, but also not the right Jeffrey Epstein. And then she came out and was like, I didn't ever say it was the other one. I never said it was the same. And you're like, God, why are you such a child? Just saying, my bad, I'm sorry. I just, I was rushed and I didn't have a lot of time, and I just made a mistake. I'm sorry. Super simple, very simple words. But when you're a narcissist, it's hard. It's hard to say I'm sorry. Elon Musk has said that the Optimus robot, the one we were just talking about that furry fetishes exist around, will eliminate poverty and provide universal high income for all. I hope so. I hope you're right, man. I don't see how, but cool. I'm down to imagine a good future with you, sir. The British government is withholding data that may link COVID jab to excess deaths. We've actually had a pretty good exposure recently on some pretty good data that proves the excess deaths. And we already know, we've talked about it for years. We've talked about the data on the show. We're not, we're not being shown anything we haven't seen before here. But it seems to be getting out a little bit more into the mainstream that look, here's the evidence. You can see all cause death. It's the same. Even through the whole COVID crisis, it was the same. It didn't change a bit. And then as soon as the vaccines dropped, it went up and up and up and up and up. And we have this massive increase in all-cause mortality after the vaccine rolled out, or the injection, or the biologic, or whatever you like to call it. So yeah, they withheld that, and yeah, it's out now, and yeah, we should all know that by now. I just don't care about this. We kind of talked about this. There was a woman who disguised herself repeatedly, tens of times, using sunglasses, hard hats, and other sort of construction gear in order to go take CDL tests for illegal immigrants, pass it for them, and get them their license. So again, we keep seeing more and more of these types of cases, and luckily we're catching them. The UK Army is using Chinese-made 3D printers in the field to build weapons like suicide drones, despite national security concerns. So that seems like a big loophole that will hopefully get plugged if the UK cares about itself. Oxford Union has voted overwhelmingly in favor of a motion declaring Israel a greater, quote, threat to regional stability than Iran. That's pretty amazing. Also, maybe some progress. We'll see. Britain will reduce protection for refugees, including forcing them to return to their home countries. I hope that's true. That's an amazing headline to read after all these years of weaponized immigration and the degradation of British culture and society. So I hope so. That's a huge win. I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it. This is also cool. The National Palace in Mexico is besieged by a massive crowd amid growing insecurity in the country under the administration of President Claudia Sheinbaum. Again, we already know she's not super legit. Sheinbaum, she definitely seems pro-cartel and not really for the people. Trump has had some issues with her. She's backed down multiple times, and now the people are turning against her. So you love to see it if it's organic, especially. The Democratic Republic of Congo and the M23 rebel group have signed a peace deal in Qatar to end the fighting in Eastern Congo. It's always good when we have more peace. Congratulations, hallelujah, what a win. Large anonymous donations are being funneled into the WHO's coffers via the WHO Foundation, raising concerns about the organization's dependence on undisclosed donors. Yeah, very sus. WHO is already super sus. We don't need it at all. It does nothing good for us. Get rid of it. Also, who are the shady financiers? We're not even allowed to know. So at least we know that, and that will hopefully free us from it entirely one day. Trump has said, despite the BBC's apology for splicing together misleading footage, making it sound like he encouraged and called for the siege of the Capitol on January 6th, they've apologized for that, but he said he will still sue them between $1 million and $5 billion, probably sometime next week. I just casually threw that out. And he should. That is a massive amount of defamation, libel, or whatever else. And so good, get them. Get them. The Department of Justice has sued California Governor Gavin Newsom over Proposition 50. That was the redistricting plan. They've called it unlawful and unconstitutional. It would be great for the people of California if that gets undone. So we can call that a potential huge win. Kristi Noem has handed out $10,000 bonus checks to appreciate the TSA agents who stood their post during the shutdown. I appreciate them too, and I think it's fantastic to reward good behavior. This is exactly how you get even better behavior in the future. And no, I don't want people to have to work through a shutdown, but especially when the shutdown was crafted by Democrats in order to hurt our nation, it's pretty cool that there were people who are willing to keep things going. And what a cool thing to be able to get this. Like if you're a TSA agent or any lowly worker of that kind, and you've got very little money, $10,000 is huge. So I love it. I think it's a great use of, I don't want it to, I don't love the TSA. I'm just saying, like, that is a cool thing to do. It's good. It's a good way to run things. I hope we see more of that in good faith. Far left Congressman Eric Swalwell has been referred to the Justice Department for criminal charges. And, I'm sure there's more than we're aware of with his honeypot Chinese spy of a girlfriend. So yeah, good. Let's get him. Let's find out all the corruption, root it out, especially if it's connected to China. And that would be great. Republican New York City councilwoman moves to call Mamdani's bluff on his first day in office by hosting Netanyahu. Mamdani has said like, oh, we're anti-Israel and oh, we're anti-Netanyahu and all this and all that. And she's like, cool, well, you can tell him to his face. And I don't like Netanyahu, and I would tell him to his face if I had the opportunity in an appropriate way. But I love the move, at least, right? Like, prove it. I'm down for anyone, anywhere having to prove it, whatever it is. So that's cool. Trump signs an executive order lowering tariffs on several agricultural imports, including beef, coffee, and bananas. Some people are pretty upset about that. I would love to support our local beef people first, our local agriculture first. At the same time, if this helps people eat healthier, have more, in the meantime, I guess that's what it is. Just people are always going to be divided on tariffs or not tariffs, and you can go whatever way you want with it. I don't know. I just found out about these weird, creepy Labubu dolls, and then they are very creepy. I mean, I haven't seen a single one that isn't very terrifying and creepy looking, but apparently kids and moms are like obsessed with these Labubu dolls. They seem tiny. They're sort of plush, and then I think they have like a hard face. They sort of remind me of trolls and Beanie Babies. Like there's just this artificial craze around them, but now there's going to be a Labubu movie. So that's also terrifying and horribly sad for all of culture and all of history, but that's what's happening now. In Brazil, we've unveiled the largest statue of Virgin Mary, measuring 51 meters, surpassing Rio's 38-meter Christ the Redeemer statue. I bet a lot of people are also very divided about this. Mary, of course, is beloved around the world, especially in Latin America. Some branches of Christianity see that as sort of like idol worship, or not God. Also worship things that aren't God. And I'm sure there's also people who are very upset that it's bigger than Christ, but I think it's cool. If people love it, they should love it. That's neat. Tucker has come out, and Tucker Carlson has this huge expose on the alleged Trump shooter Thomas Crooks and his hidden online history, which his private investigators were able to unearth in a short amount of time, even years later. And the FBI still hasn't apparently found all of what Tucker's team found. One making you wonder, why do we even have an FBI if all they can do is screw things up, hide things from us, and cover up murders of prominent politicians? But again, I repeat myself, that's actually their purpose. A judge approves an opioid settlement deal requiring members of Sackler family to contribute up to $7 billion and give up ownership of Purdue Pharma. This is huge. The Sackler family is so corrupt and so awful and has caused so much suffering and pain and death in the world. And this is huge. This is going to contribute to many other things that are also transforming in the pharmaceutical area. The commercials are going to be changing. We've got this online purchasing for prescriptions that Trump has forced Pfizer to invest in. And now we have this with the Sacklers and Purdue, and it's actually huge. They would need someone much more familiar with it to tell you all the details of why that's so good. But just with the short amount I've been able to share with you here on the show and get into myself, it is very, very good. I'm kind of surprised more people aren't dying, because that's what Big Pharma does, is just kill everyone that's in their way. Allegedly, this is for entertainment purposes, etc. But that's crazy, actually. These things are shifting. And so this is still not even 1 year in to this administration, and I'm excited to see what else happens. So pretty cool. Trump says he'll be tasking the DOJ, FBI, and Pam Bondi to investigate specifically Jeffrey Epstein's involvement and relationship with Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, JP Morgan, Chase, and many other people. So again, I know a lot of people were like, why is Trump resisting? Why, whatever. I think part of that is it made Democrats want it harder. They pushed for this, and now it's going to potentially, again, we'll see it, we'll believe it when we see it, but we have the potential here to actually finally bring down some of these people. That's amazing. We'll see, but it's pretty interesting so far. I'm not opposed to anything that's happening so far. Oh, I'll get into this some other time. This is sorry, just excuse me for a second here. There we go. So Trump's also said the Democrats are doing everything in their power to push a Jeffrey Epstein hoax. Again, it just got them to push it harder. And now we have all of this released. Quite interesting. Dutch banks are going to cut thousands of jobs as they adopt AI to reduce costs. Of course. The EU proposes training 3,000 Palestinian police officers from Gaza with a view to training the full 13,000 Palestinian police force in general. This is what Trump was responding to when he said, thank you for supporting the peace board, of which I am the head. So that's pretty cool. U.S. Catholic bishops officially ban transgender treatments in thousands of Catholic-run hospitals. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. Catholics can do good things sometimes, protecting children and women everywhere. BBC did apologize to Trump. He's going to sue them anyway. We're going to talk about that another time. Okay, we'll talk about this, and this will be where we end. This is pretty cool. This is from John Schulwick. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but he's on Twitter at _climate craze. He's doing his best to come up against some of the climate, misinformation we've been indoctrinated with over many decades. He's a former typhoon forecaster, and he is a Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Air Force retired meteorologist. And so he has documented 196 ghost stations where NOAA, the Northern Oceanic Atmospheric, etc. NOAA, there's all the data, all the weather stuff, right, through them. So 196 ghost stations through NOAA fabricating temperatures for data recording stations that no longer exist. There are many more yet to document, he says. You can find them at hashtag NOAA Ghost Station. So he's a fascinating, how am I not following him yet? He's a fascinating Twitter to follow. He's a ghost station buster, and it's just more proof, as though we needed it, that the climate hoax really is a hoax, and that everything about it has been manipulated over many decades. We already knew. They went back and changed temperature data from air and ocean over the past many decades. I've covered this so many times that people still don't know about it. They changed it by making it more extreme and making it support their models. And they said they had to because they found a problem with their sensors. So they're saying, oh, faulty sensors. So we're going to go back and fix all the data that the sensors didn't get right. Well, sure. I don't believe you, though. There's no way you had faulty sensors in every single device over decades, going back to the 70s and beyond. And that it just so happened that all of those changes supported your faulty model that cow farts and fossil fuels, alleged fossil fuels, are fueling climate change. There's no way. And now this guy and many others have documented all kinds of other falsehoods, but they're showing all these ghost stations where they literally are pretending there's a station and getting data from it, and there isn't one there, and there's no data. They're just making it up to fit their models. And even then we see through it, because even then they're like, this was the hottest year on record. And then we go look at all the data and we say, actually, it wasn't at all. Not even a little bit, not even any records broken. And they're like, oh, but all the ice caps are melting. And then we look at the data and we're like, actually, the ice caps are bigger than they've ever been since we started measuring. So all of it is based on lies and a fake consensus. And this guy is proving it. And I love that win as well. We've had some huge wins today, especially in recovering the lost children that the Biden administration intentionally threw into living hell and torturing, especially in the fight against China, Venezuela, false elections, and this new world order that is being, and perhaps has already been, waylaid by a significant amount, if not destroyed completely, in real time in front of our eyes. And yes, there is a new world order coming up in its place, and we will keep our eye on it. But what a huge win that we have done away with the one that hates us even more and wants an even torturous existence for us. That's a good enough win. We have the huge wins of nuclear energy coming back, and we have the huge wins of everyone seeming to wake up more and more to Israel, to biologics / vaccines / injections and mRNA, and to the truth of what actually happened in COVID. So it's a fantastic week as far as I'm concerned. I hope you all feel the upliftment. I hope you continue to look to the hope that you have within you and within your soul, with your connection to yourself, to others, and to this earth, and to your soul. I hope also that you continue to look through the propaganda, through the indoctrination, through the wool that's attempting to be pulled over your eyes, into the truth of this reality, which is sometimes dark, but it's always better to see that than the illusion. And as you do, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
Glued to them screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones, the holly suggestions that a flicker rate to camouflage the folly. Attempt a mental robbery, executed softly. The hypocrisy, this mockery, and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.